What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Higurashi When They Cry Go. This is episode 9. With me, as always, I have Blue Spit.
So, once again, the timeline is again reset for another, I would assume, like a couple weeks prior. Yeah. So, overall, in my opinion on this episode, I mean, I honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this episode just because
there really isn't too much to say. It kind of goes back to what we're used to whenever these arcs start, where it just goes into the slice of life aspect of the series, and it's usually like that until the Watanagashi festival happens. So that's pretty much what this episode was. However it did, of course. So for those who don't know, this arc in the series, at least in the original, it apparently goes more into Sadako as a character. Basically, Keiichi getting closer to Sadako, and it also introduces her abusive uncle, who is which is the first thing we see in this episode, actually, which is I think it's like Tape Hojo or something. And we basically get a sense for what kind of person he is, because we see him in his apartment, and his apartment's a total wreck. And one of the landlady's knocking on his door and telling him the neighbors have been complaining about the smell coming from his unit. And then he confronts her and starts yelling. And it kind of gives us an impression for her how he is as a person. So it kind of goes from that. And then we get back into, of course, the Keiichi and the rest of the cast. But this time there's much more of a focus on, like, Keiichi and Sadako, where, like, Sadako was, I guess she ends up, like, challenging Keiichi to some kind of cooking competition. And, like, apparently this is something that was actually cut from the episode, because this is something they apparently show in the visual novel. It's where it's basically there is some kind of cook-off, I guess, between Keiichi and Sadako. But instead of actually showing this, they cut to Keiichi back at his house. And he's preparing, basically, I guess his plan was to have his parents cook something and then, like, take it to school the next day and present it as something that he himself cooked. But then he finds his parents are not going to be home, so he decides he is actually going to cook it himself, which does not end well, because, of course, I think he says he's never really cooked anything, so he tries to cook something simple, and he doesn't understand how much a teaspoon is, so he puts in much more than a teaspoon and ends up starting a fire, and almost burns down his house. And Sadako and Rika just show up out of nowhere. Like, I don't know, like, my question is, like, how did they even get into his house? Somehow they're all of a sudden in his house, and Sadako just, like, gets him out of the way and puts out the fire. And then she decides she's going to cook something instead. And so this is kind of where we learn a little bit more, I guess, about Sadako and her living situation from Rika, as Rika tells Keiichi about, like, we finally get Satoshi name dropped, which is Sadako's brother who went missing. For those who don't know, Satoshi is someone who actually does get referenced quite a bit in the original visual novel and in the anime, in the original anime at least, in the other arcs, because he is kind of an important character, but he has not been referenced at all so far in GOU until this point. So I found that kind of interesting. I'm not exactly sure why that is in the first two arcs, but of course, because like, this has to do with Sadako herself, I'm not really surprised that we finally get a reference to Satoshi. He kind of does need to be a part of this arc, considering who he is. So yeah, we finally get reference to him, and Rika kind of briefly describes, Sadako's whole, like, part of Sadako's situation to Keiichi, I guess, while Sadako's cooking.
Yeah, so it pretty much encourages Keiichi to be more of an older brother to Sadako, just because he finds out from Rika about her situation, and, like, and Sadako mentions that, like, well, it's almost in denial of what happened to Satoshi, because she thinks that Satoshi either ran away and is probably going to come back soon, but obviously that's not going to happen due to the situation we find out that Satoshi got himself into.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't know yet what exactly happened to Satoshi. All we know is that, like, and we find out at the end of the episode that, from, I think it's from Neon, that Satoshi, or at least Satoshi either transferred her, he ran away and he hasn't come back. That's all we really know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and pretty much the rest of this episode, I honestly, for me, I just felt like this entire episode was more copy and pasted from the original episode 9 from the original series. Yeah. I mean, because it was almost scene for scene, like, similar.
Like, there were certain things I remembered, like the baseball game. That Keiichi was going to, like, Rena calls Keiichi and says that Sadako's in trouble, so he goes to the baseball game. And I want to say, like, apparently people also said this was something they completely cut out, because in the visual novel there is, like, this whole, like, baseball game between that Keiichi, I guess, takes part in, but they sort of just, in this episode, they sort of cut from Keiichi showing up and cut to, like, the end of the game instead of actually, like, showing it. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's something I could tell they definitely cut. Yeah, like, even if you haven't read the visual novel, you can kind of tell they just cut out that part. But I don't know if they actually did that in the original too. But they definitely did it here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember them doing a post-game barbecue.
Yeah, I think that's definitely different too.
Yeah. However, like, during the barbecue, we do get introduced to Airi Kyosuke in this. He has a conversation with Keiichi talking about his fondness for Sadako, saying that if she gets older, that he wants to marry her and stuff.
Well, it gets even weirder too, because when Shion shows up, she jokes around with Irie about him wanting to put, like, Sadako in, like, a maid outfit and all that, and, like, that just made it even more creepy. Just the fact that he wanted to adopt her and that he wants to eventually marry her.
Yeah, I mean, it was also odd with, like, Shion just suddenly popping up, and then both Shion and Keiichi are already acquainted
that's something.
At this point.
So apparently, Shion and Keiichi are already acquainted, and Keiichi already knows about the dam incident. So I don't know if this is how it plays out in the visual novel. I don't know if maybe they just I think it does make sense, though, if they do also cut that part out in the visual novel, considering, like, of course, in the last arc, we already did get introduced to Shion, and we already kind of got a pretty much mostly a pretty full explanation of what happened with the dam incident. So I guess they figure they don't really need to go over that again. So maybe that's why they, didn't really show that on camera, or at least, Keiichi getting acquainted with Shion again and learning about the dam incident.
Yeah. However, Keiichi does once again overhear the Hinamizawa curse, the Oyashiro curse from, like, two random kids during
one
the barbecue.
other thing too I should mention is that people pointed out that Shion does seem to be very close with Sadako in this too, and apparently, I guess, like, either in the original anime or in the visual novel, she's kind of awkward around Shion, and she's not as close as she is in this episode to her. So I don't know if that's something we should see as it being important, but I guess it's a change. So, but yeah, of course, like you said, Keiichi learns about the curse of Oyashiro, but that's really all we get about the curse in this episode. We don't really get anything else about it.
Yeah. So, and I think there was another scene that follows up with Keiichi asking Mion and Rena about what happened to Satoshi, and then of course Rena, I think, just, I don't know, she just, like, flips a switch at one point and then just walks away from
that. Makes sense because well, in the original so in the first arc in Onikakushi, if you mention, whenever, like, Keiichi brings up Satoshi to Rena, Rena basically, like you said, she flips a switch, and that's where she kind of goes crazy. And she tells, Keiichi that Satoshi transferred out, and, Keiichi might transfer out too. And you kind of get the impression transfer out doesn't mean what you might think it means. And Yeah, Rena basically that it causes her to go crazy when he mentioned Satoshi. So, yeah, I think she did. Like you said, I think she was about to, like, I don't know if she was about to just go completely insane or what was going to happen, but like, yeah, Mion kind of intervened and sort of stopped whatever might have happened before it started, and then Rena goes back home.
Yeah, and I think the final scene is with Sadako, like, going into a house with
I should
uncle.
also say beforehand, of course, like Mion explains the situation to Keiichi about like Sadako and what was Sadako and Satoshi and what happened to Satoshi. So yeah, of course, as you might expect, that's something that's going to be prevalent throughout this arc and it's going to come up again. But yeah, like Spade was saying, the final scene is, of course, Sadako walking into, I think people say, yeah, this is actually like, this is the Hojo residence, I think this is. So I guess it's her uncle's house. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, she walks into the house and her uncle like just kind of ominously is standing at the door and then like closes it behind them. So yeah, even if you don't know what's going on, you can pretty much infer what might be happening, that she's probably being abused by him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm just curious in like what direction they're gonna go with this particular arc, because I don't know if like they're gonna end up changing certain things or changing certain events that happen in this arc, because we kind of know what happened in the original version, but we're curious in like if certain things are gonna end up changing this time around.
Because there hasn't really been like, they haven't really gotten to a point yet where like there's an important thing, I guess, that's going to potentially take things in a different direction. So I guess we're just kind of waiting on that. I don't think Rika's really done anything to really intervene and change things like she did in the last two arcs yet, as far as I know.
Like unlike like the first episode of the last arc, in which Rika convinces Keiichi to give Mion the doll, unlike when he gave it to Rena, back in the original. So it's just, this episode is just basically almost shot for shot similar to the original episode 9.
So Rika tried to change things in the first episode of the last arc, but in the first arc it wasn't until like I think a couple episodes in or so that she tried to change stuff. So maybe we might have to wait a little bit before she actually does decide to change something. I don't know. I'm wondering if like how like if every arc like Rika is going to continue to try to like steer things in a different direction and just continue to fail, or if she's going to try some other approach because she realizes this might not be working. I don't know. I
remember she like literally gave up.
That is true.
Just flipped the switch at Keiichi. Yeah, because like she admitted that like like nothing was gonna nothing pretty much mattered at that point when Keiichi told her what was happening at the
I would
time.
really like to see like another scene just with Rika, either her talking to Hanyu or something, just so we get like an impression of what it is she's trying to do or what's going on. But because we only got that one scene in the second episode, and ever since then I kind of thought that we would be getting scenes with Rika, also with Kate, everything happening from Keiichi's perspective, but also like having scenes with Rika thrown in there, but that's not really what ended up happening. So I'm kind of wondering if we're ever going to get any more scenes from Rika's perspective again, or maybe if they're saving that for either later in the season or potentially another season, maybe. I'm not sure, but
if I were to guess, maybe I think it's possible they might go into like an answer
That's
arc.
What I was thinking. Like,
Kai related.
I feel like there almost has to be an answer arc at this point, because there have just been too many questions already brought up in this season. Unless they attempt to do that in the second half of the season, where they actually try to answer all the things they brought up, all the questions that have been brought up in the beginning arcs. So I don't know. I guess it could go either way, where they like try to address those things near the end of the season, or if they end up doing like a second season.
Yeah, I mean, personally, in my opinion, of this version of the show so far, it's it's pretty much predictable at this point. Even though there are like a few changes here and there, the overall outcomes of like, you know, at the end of certain arcs just don't really like surprise me anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much like you can expect things to go bad. You can, like, you know, you might expect Rika to make an attempt to change things, but, you know, things will happen just differently, but they'll still end up, you know, resulting in bad things happening.
Yeah, it's just another thing predictable is that they're replaying the exact same arcs and like in the same particular order. With a few minor changes here and there, but it's just not significant enough for me, you know, to really hook me to even really.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I am kind of waiting for like a reason why this is even happening in the first place, like, because I mean, the big question for me is like, why is this happening again? Like, why are they going through the loops again? If they've already, you know, if they already got out of it in Higurashi Kai. And this is supposed to be like technically like a sequel, then how is it that they're being put through the loops again? Like, why is this happening again? Like, that's kind of what, like, the big mystery to me. So I really would like to know, like, what the reason is for it. Like, maybe that'll, like, change the way we see this, like, what's happening now, but so far we really just don't have adequate answers as to why this is even going on, like, the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping... I'm not expecting anything significant to happen by the end of this arc, because I know what's gonna happen at the end of this arc, and you know, unless like there are certain things that are gonna end up changing, it's just I don't really have much high expectations for the climax of this particular arc, because I know what happens. Like, even if they change like certain details, it's just not going to change the overall outcome.
I really feel regardless. like in terms of climax, that's where GOU has kind of underwhelmed me, like, because there wasn't much of a climax in the first one. Like, I guess you could say there was more of one than in the second one, but the second one just, it really didn't have much of a climax at all. Like, we just heard of what everything that happened off screen, and that was pretty much it. So we didn't really get much of one. That was kind of that was like, I think, what I was most disappointed with is we didn't see any of it happening. We just basically heard about it after the fact from Oishi. So I'm wondering if that'll be the same here. I kind of hope not. So, you know, because of like how the last arc played out, my expectations have kind of been a little bit lowered, just because I don't expect it. Like, I expect it to either maybe that they will attempt to do some kind of a climactic ending, or they just won't even bother with it. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, we'll pretty much keep our eyes open on what changes they might implement in the show. But it's just like right now, like it's so far the show's played out exactly similarly to the original series so far, unless they're planning on like you know, making the second core into like the answer arc, unlike. I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna play out. They're just like, because so far, like, the people that made this show like have like blatantly lied to us, saying that this is either
that is a remake,
like a remake, and then a remake or sequel, whatever this is they're calling it at this point. But it's just like there's nothing different about it.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I mean, like, yeah, like you said, it mostly plays out. Like, I mean, after having read the visual novel, I can say like, a lot of events happen very similarly. It's just that at a certain point it deviates and there are differences, but I would say they're not like really substantial differences. The result, like we've been saying, the result is still the same. It's just kind of different. So, you know, it's I would say the series is mostly just for you know, people who, if they've already seen the original series and are interested, like, because it feels more like a what if sort of scenario with each of these arcs. But yeah, I don't know. I almost feel like I said, that there really just either like needs to be an answer arc if this plays out exactly the same as it does in the original series, but just with some differences. Then I would definitely think they need to do another season. But if I don't know, it's still a little bit too early to say. It's going to be like a 25 episode season, so there's still time. I would say there's still plenty of time for them to hopefully address some of the things that have been brought up already in the show.
Yeah, because so far it's just like the all of these arcs so far have pretty much had the same number of episodes
Yeah.
per arc. Like, you know, like like the first arc had 4 episodes, second arc had 4 episodes. This one's gonna have, 4 episodes as well. So, and who knows whether or not this is gonna end, if the ending is gonna be similar or if they're gonna end up changing something. But it just, at this point, I just don't have much. I don't really have high expectations of how the arc is going to end, because we know how it's going to play out.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, I just don't really have too much else to say about this episode. I am hoping that, I don't know. I'm hoping the next episode that there's like a little bit more to talk about, because with this one, it's just, like I said, it goes back into the slice of life stuff.
I mean, this show's not bad. It's just, for our case, we've watched the original series.
Yeah.
It's just like, I would assume like this show might be an attempt to hook like new people who haven't watched the original series or have no access to even try to watch it.
That's what they said in interviews,
maybe,
but I almost don't know if I'd recommend it to new people, just because it seems like it also sort of requires, information from people, people would have who've already seen the original series. But I just don't know. It just doesn't seem like something that is totally accessible to new people. So it's hard to say. I feel like it'd be better if you have seen the original series, because you'd have a better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, honestly, I just have no idea what these developers or who the creators are are trying to attempt to grab here. I mean, it's I don't know. It's still a little bit mind-boggling to me as like, why they're doing this in the first place. But who knows? Unless there is something that is gonna surprise us at the end. Like I said, not a lot of high expectations, to be honest.
Well, I guess unless you have anything else to say about it, yeah.
Not really. I mean, I'm pretty much expecting something similar to play out by probably by the next 4 weeks.
I will say, like, I am hoping, at least as we maybe get to either the halfway point or near the end of the season, that we get some huge thing that like either takes it in a new direction or is like just a big reveal in general and is sort of a justification as to why certain things are happening. I'd be fine with that, but like that's kind of what I'm somewhat hoping for. But I guess we'll just have to see. It's hard to say like what's gonna happen. Like, because the big thing, like I said, is like, why is Rika being put through this again, and what's going on with Rika and Hanyu? We only got that one scene and pretty much nothing else. So I'm really just waiting for maybe another scene between them where Hanyu maybe explains a little bit more as to why Rika's in this situation, or something like that. But yeah. But that all being said, I guess until next Thursday, we will see you all next time.